This is Brian Margolis, and welcome to the Simplify Your Strategy, Magnify Your Results podcast, where on each episode I use the pillar system to help a sales pro, entrepreneur, or other results-based professional create a weekly strategy to run a simple, more lucrative business. A strategy so simple it can fit on an index card, but so powerful it's actually helped create multiple seven-figure earners and is now licensed by some of the largest companies in the world to create strategies for their teams. If you'd like a free copy of my book on exactly how to do this, or want to be considered as a guest on a future episode, head on over to productivitygiant.com. Enjoy the episode. So when we established, John, your pillars almost 2 months ago now.
That's right.
It was a while ago. So I guess there's kind of two components to this, which is the first one is, have you refined them in any way, changed them, added, subtracted, and we can talk about that a little bit. And then the second part is, have you been hitting them consistently, inconsistently, some more than others, just as honest as possible, right?
Yeah.
As you kind of go down this new road of having an actual weekly strategy, right?
Sure.
So I'll shut up and I'll kind of just let you update me on what's been happening the last few months.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually been very good to follow, and I will say, and I'll get into the detail. I have changed. I've had to add and subtract and so on, and I'll fill you in as to why, and that'll lead to hopefully some other strategies going forward. But one of the things that I had done right away after our meeting and the establishment of the pillars that I was going to start with was to place them in a prominent place where I was going to see them every day. And so what I've done is I've entered them onto my my home screen of my computer. So when I boot up my computer, I've got my background image obviously there, and there they sit right up in the upper left-hand corner. So they are a constant reminder for me to stay with these. And I've got more than one screen in front of me when I'm working from home, so I can play a little bit with different projects we're working on. So on one of the screens, it's always there in front of me, which has been wonderful. It's top of mind, always looking at them, always that reminder to stay with these. And it's worked very well. It's obviously worked very well. We've been extremely busy with work. I'd like to think that some of what I've been doing has been that positive impact. Obviously, I can't say all of it has, but some of the pillars and the strategies that we had talked about and have put in place have certainly made an impact on the specific line of service that I'm in within my company. As you remember, my company has different lines of service. They're all healthcare related. The line of service that I do, the business development and the sales from, is one of the smaller lines of service, but has been on a very progressive path to growth, and we're looking at some tremendous growth for 2019. So, what did I do, and what were the things that I knew I had to change? And some of it was defined by sort of the direction or the guide rails of our organization. So, for example, my number one pillar that I have on my list was to schedule a weekly meeting with one of the other line of service business development people, director of operations, or a specific salesperson.
And I think we called those SSDs, right?
I think we did. Yep.
Okay.
And that's been
strategy and sales director.
Correct. That has been extremely helpful. And so much so that the larger part of our company business looks to my line of service and pulls us in as a supporting service, a way to grow an existing account, a way to be maybe a little bit more strategic in being able to meet the client needs much more broadly. Again, we're just another service that they can add on here. The problem that I faced when I came into this organization, and again, it's only been 4 months since I've been with this organization, is that larger part of our business, the mainstay part of our business, really wasn't aware of what my line of service does. They weren't really aware of who we were, that we were professionals, that we were sort of experts in our field. We were the subject matter experts for what we do. And so just simply the fact that, or the step to have a meeting with these folks once a week, and I've touched just about every single one of them, and maybe one left that we haven't done yet, has been wonderful, because we've already been brought into multiple different client projects that I don't think we would have had the opportunity to if we weren't talking on a regular basis.
And the pillar itself is not to have one a week. It's just to schedule one for the future. So
yeah, and
some weeks you could wind up with 2, some weeks you could wind up with 0, right?
Correct. And I've pushed that a little bit. I've tried to actually have one a week. And it hasn't worked out completely, as you had said, especially through the holidays. But I've got what's the exact number? It's sort of morphed a little bit over the last couple months, but there's 12 to 15 of those folks that I can schedule with. So I think I still have one more to meet with. But that alone has been an eye opener for that side of our organization to look to us to basically say, "Holy cow! I didn't know you guys did this."
Right.
I didn't know.
And is the plan to continue that as a pillar? In other words, you still want to stay in front of these guys. It wasn't just a one-time thing, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Oh, I want to. So I've been setting up basically a schedule. Check marking. I met with Dan. I met with Brian. I met with Mary. I met with Stephanie.
Right.
And I want to cycle back now after a while and go through these folks again. Now, what's nice about this is that as we've created this sort of internal, broader awareness of what my line of service does now, I'm talking to these folks much more often, right? So these last couple weeks, this last 2 months have been sort of, RFP hell or RFP heaven, depending on how you look at it.
Right.
Because these folks have said, "Holy cow, my client just asked me about this. Had we not spoken, I would have just glazed over it. But now we're going to bring you guys in." And so these weekly meetings with the sales folks and the business development folks on the larger side of our business has led to much more activity between us, which obviously then has led to many more opportunities for our line of service.
Okay. So the schedule 1 SSD a week is obviously staying put.
Absolutely.
What about some of the other ones? The reaching out to 100 prospects, reviewing opportunity report, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So great question. So the second one that I have here is reach prospects. Now, we started with 100 and I backed that off to 50, and I'll explain why. That has not really taken hold, and here's why. We're a $700 million organization. My line of service is considerably smaller than that, but does contribute. The organization is very particular about how we reach out to our clients and our prospects, and that is being directed through our sales and marketing department, which has held me back from doing this. And internally, we've been pushing on this hard, and I've pushed it with the individual that I report to and the individual that they report to as well, basically to say, "Guys, you brought me in to do this job. the job is to grow this business and hit these goals. We're only going to do that if we can generate growth, and that's only going to happen by reaching more people. Right now, I'm being handheld or handcuffed, if you will, by doing that because you want me to follow the process that the company is setting in place, which hasn't occurred yet.
Okay, so the reason when we said reach out to 100 prospects a week, that wasn't obviously you don't have to connect with them. We're saying send them an email, leave them a voicemail, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm,
some will connect, some won't.
Mm-hmm.
Did you dial it back to 50 because you will, based on the restrictions the company's placed, you just don't have that many to reach out to without?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
But is 50 the right number, and is that still the right thing to do every week?
Honestly, Brian, I don't know yet. I have not. This is one pillar that I have not reached on a consistent basis, simply because of the structure for prospecting that the company's going to outline for us. And the same holds true with the larger part of our business, in that it is remarkably, and I truly find this remarkable, that those other folks, those other SSDs that I'm contacting on a weekly basis, are not prospecting at all, because there is so much business coming in the door. And I've never experienced that before, never run into that before. In the 20 plus years that I've been doing field sales, that has been a situation I've never seen.
Right.
But it seems to be happening on that side of our business. So this drive to say, I got to have the Fortune 1000 list, and there's 700 additional clients on there we should be contacting. That's what's actually being set in place for the coming part of this year, early part of this year.
Okay, so the reason we put that in there, obviously they're reaching out to 100 prospects, now 50. That was you reaching out to those companies directly, not through an SSD, right?
Correct. That's correct.
So right now, that's almost not even a pillar, because it sounds to me like that's in limbo.
It is. It is. And I've been doing.
So you're waiting to hear from the company about how you're allowed to proceed.
Correct. There is the development of a direct mail campaign to the Fortune 1000 list. They will dictate to us what the structure for follow-up and prospecting is going to be.
Okay.
Because again, the larger part of our business just hasn't had a need to be as proactive to prospecting as I've experienced in my career, and that I think for my line of service we need to do.
Right. Okay. So that one's kind of on ice right now. It's not even a pillar.
Yeah.
Okay. Because at some point you're going to have to prospect.
Absolutely.
All right. So then the third pillar, reviewing your opportunity report, that was kind of, that was set in place basically as a follow-up pillar, right? So when you have open opportunities, people you've met with, people you've talked to, you make sure by reviewing that thing top to bottom every week, if I remember correctly. That means things don't fall through the crack. If they need another touch, they get one. If they don't, so be it. But
correct.
You at least have to go through that report each week, right?
Absolutely. And based upon our discussion, you had given me some great direction on, we have a CRM that we use for the whole company that uses. I've had experience with different CRMs. This is one of the bigger ones that's out there, and you can guess which one it is. And it's a monster. It's an absolute monster. But we obviously have to be feeding into it and keeping it updated. So not only have I been doing that, touching those leads and those opportunities through what's in there, but as you had recommended, maybe create your own list too, whether it's in an Excel spreadsheet or whether it's a Word document, however I wanted to do it. And I went to Excel. That's been a key pillar for me to, again, stay in front of these people. And my approach to that has always been, don't just follow up. these people just, they don't want to hear that you're sending them an email or a voicemail and say, hey, I'm just checking in.
Right.
Right. It's the number one turnoff. And being in sales, we all know that. So it's been an opportunity to follow up with people with information, with some education, with some announcement, with, hey, did you know we just signed on this client as well, which may be in the same field as, or the same industry as somebody
Sure.
I'm touching base with. So that's been very good.
Right. I mean, obviously, without going down the road of a sales training here, because we both know this, but whether they read that information or, skip it or whatever, it's still a poke that says, hey, don't forget about me. And
exactly.
Sometimes that's all you need. I mean, one of my pillars that has just stayed through and through for the years has been my pillar of Excel follow, which is, every week, as laborious as it can be sometimes, I go down my list of all people I've talked to over time, and I have a ranking system, right?
Mm-hmm.
But even people from a few years ago, sometimes it's funny when you revisit and things like that, and it's just this never-ending source. And it's so obvious to me when I want to fill up my calendar, so to speak. If I want more business, I use that Excel follow. If I don't, I don't. I go through it every time, but my decision making about whether to contact people or not, and it's just it's to me, follow up has always been it's always been a weak point of a lot of salespeople, because what they do is when things are good, they're so busy selling, and then the prospecting drives. But anyway, we can talk about that another time.
Right.
All right.
Right.
So reviewing the opportunity report is going to stay.
Yes.
And then we had 5 hours of building your database a week.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And this has backed off as well. What I have in front of me now, I have 1 to 3 hours creating that database, and that's tailed off. So I'm going to be looking at that. Essentially, what I've done is I've taken the Fortune 1000 list, which is our target customers, self-insured employers, large self-insured employers, domestically located, and have basically married that up to our existing master client list. Because again, the direction from our sales and marketing group is it's going to be that I should be able to, I'm expecting that I will be able to prospect outside of the existing client list we have. So it leaves a lot of people.
Right.
So what I've done, and again, as I've reached out to, a small amount of these people here and there, I've married that up to our current client list so that I'm not reaching out to an existing customer and interfering with what might be being developed on the larger side of our business. And I understand that, and that makes sense to me, because that's being driven, that larger side of the business is being driven by the SSDs that we were talking about earlier. So I gotta almost stay away from that until they say, hey, John, I want you to come in and talk to my client.
Right. So, but building this database is important.
Yes.
So when you say 1 to 3 hours, was 5 hours too much just because there was other probably more important things to do? Or was it just 5 hours was too much because you'd have that database built in a few weeks kind of thing?
Well, a little bit of both. I am anticipating that the database will be provided to me by our sales and marketing department. And they'll say, the first 300 lines here are existing customers. The next 700, knock yourself out. Here's the contacts. Here's their names, their telephone numbers, emails, and so on and so on and so on. But that's what
you might be building something that they already have.
Exactly. Well, I know we have it. Okay,
then maybe I'm misunderstanding. What's the value of working on it now?
Well, the value was because the not knowing what the plan or the strategy was going to be for prospecting this coming year, I didn't want to wait. I've been in positions where,
Right.
you are accountable. You're accountable for this goal. And I get a little bit nervous when somebody says, yeah, just wait, we'll have it for you. That doesn't settle with me. So what I started was, let me match up our existing customer list, our existing client list with the Fortune 1000 list, so that at least I have who I think our prospects will be.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah,
So
that's
do you
why.
feel like you need to spend time on that every week moving forward, or?
Not really.
Okay.
Not really.
That's kind of where I was going with this. So I'm crossing that one out.
Yeah.
Crossing that one up. The other one's on ice because you will want to bring it back. This one, if you're understanding correctly, someone else has already done the work, so you won't have to.
Correct.
Okay. 45 minutes of messaging.
Mm-hmm.
I have, okay, hold on. I wrote it down as 45 minutes of messaging learn.
Yeah. So we talked about, this all rolls into the prospecting and the follow-ups and so on. So we had talked about learning direct response, the creation of a direct response, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Which has been real helpful. So I have been spending time researching, reading, learning a little bit, mapping out what I want some of this direct response to be, to either clients or people reaching out on LinkedIn, somebody just, inquiring about what we do and how we can help out. And so I've followed some of this with a plan that I'm still working on, which will give me the opportunity to categorize different ways to respond to people, or different ways to create a message to get out there. And some of this I'm using a little bit now, and it might be a little bit under the wire, but some of it's also in preparation for, we have your prospecting list, here it is, here's some direction from us as to what we'd like you to do. But I will have a certain plan for what I want my direct responses to be and my message creation to be. And it's been good about learning that obviously you have to set goals with these. Creating a roadmap that you're going to follow, and identifying what the value is that your service is going to bring, and then create a formula for that. So, these are all things you thought you knew how to do it because you've been doing it for a while. But when you look at it and you understand a little bit more about learning what the correct direct response creation is, it was pretty eye-opening to me.
Yeah, I mean, look, to me, listen, there's a reason that direct response copywriters get paid $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 a day and up, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not one of these things that any of us could probably ever master. But I'm always been amazed at, the message more so at this time of constant barrage and limited attention. It's never been more important to have this skill. I mean, this is what ultimately separates you from everyone else, is your ability with words or videos or however you're doing it, voicemails, emails, the ability to get someone, within milliseconds to say, hey, that's something I need. Right.
Yeah.
And, if this is repeat, so be it. But, I've always said that, listen, there's only two reasons you're not going to get a response from someone. Number one is you don't have anything of value for them, right? What you have is just not valuable enough for them to, stop what they're doing or to take time to learn or whatever it is, right? Or number two, you have something of value, but you're not able to articulate it very quickly, right?
Right.
Within a voicemail, an email, a quick message. And outside of that, I mean, let's be honest. If you have something of value and you can articulate it, people will respond. And your problem is always in one of those two areas, right?
Yeah.
And it's amazing. You can message this thing 36 different ways, and the 37th way connects with people.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, 45 minutes to me is to me, that's even a minimum, right? Of learning how to say something to get someone to respond.
Oh yeah, and it's you're absolutely right. 45 minutes either reading or learning or putting these together or putting the format together or the formula. It's just by the time you dig into it and you're really starting to understand it, it's like you could spend another couple hours doing this.
Oh yeah, no, and your total is 90 minutes because 45 is the learning, 45
Right.
is the actual creating of messages, right?
Right.
And so, I mean, I remember, and you dig around, you dig around, you dig around, and you try things, and some things work and some things don't. But you know, one of the classic, email subject lines or ad subject lines that for some reason still works today. A lot of these tend to kind of run their course, and people see them and they emotionally unsubscribe. But I've read this in multiple places. But how to blank without blank, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And you basically fill in the benefit, how to whatever the benefit is, and then without, and the second blank is whatever they fear or don't want to do, right?
Right.
Like how to lose weight without dieting,
Yeah.
right? How to ask for referrals without feeling awkward,
Mm-hmm.
right? How to reduce your insurance costs without what is your customer's number one fear about a program like yours, right?
Right.
What are they anticipating is going to be involved, right? It's like when someone tells me they can save me money on my phone bill or whatever, I get one of these calls. I'm like, that's great. But to me, I just have this picture of a big mess and dealing with a button. And to me, it's not even worth it. Right.
Right.
So if someone sends me an email, right, like, how to get an extra 1% on your savings account without having to change something or what, that's the kind of stuff that tends to work. And so, you learn this by studying direct response. So anyway, all right. So did you add any pillars?
Um, you know, I think I have, but I haven't actually formalized it. So
Okay.
so let me frame this in, and this is probably where again you can help me. Um, this line of service that I'm in has really only, although the company has been doing it for 35 years, it wasn't necessarily by design, I guess is the best way to explain it. It was, the company would have clients say, I know you're doing all these things for us, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but we also have number 6. Can you do this? Which would be my line of service.
Mm-hmm.
And internally, the company would go, yeah, sure, we can do that. But there really wasn't a design to it. It almost just happened, and it happened through some acquisition and through some merging as well. But in the last couple of years, there's truly been a effort to build up this line of service with dedicated directors of operations, with a dedicated vice president of operations, with dedicated field management teams that weren't just floating out there, but that they really did have formalized direction and development and formats. And I've always been very big on you need to be able to scale this. This has to be a rinse and repeat kind of process, or it'll drive us crazy. So that's what's been building in the last couple of years here. But they haven't had a business development person. They haven't had a dedicated salesperson to work this. Again, it's just sort of happened for them. So what I've been doing really in the last 2 months have been developing a core presentation deck that again, at any time we need to build a presentation, I can go into this core deck and select the slides that we want to create our story. We've been building we do a lot of, in my line of service, we do facility design and development. And again, just as a reminder, this is more fitness related, on-site fitness.
Right.
So we do quite a bit of facility design and development. We have an internal architect that primarily works on our larger side of the business and not so much on my line of service. So what I've been building is a space allocation formula. It's essentially a spreadsheet that when we have a client that comes to us and says, we want you guys to come on site and design for us an on-site fitness facility. Here's our population. Here's our demographics. What we can do now is I can take that information, minimal information, plug it into this space allocator, and it's going to spit out for me what the space allocations we need for every aspect of this program.
Okay.
From a group exercise room to equipment space to locker rooms to the number of lockers, the number of showers, the number of water closets, how much equipment do you need, and so on and so on and so on.
I understand. So where's this moving in the direction of pillars though?
Well, I think it's moving in the direction of pillars for a short term. Because in the long run, these things, the development of these will support the overall business and the overall growth of the business.
Okay.
So as these are being done now, that will wind down.
Right. So you're saying there's two things that let's call these projects or tasks. All right.
Okay.
One is you want to develop this spreadsheet as a tool to use in sales presentations or in the service part of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the second thing is you want to build this kind of master slide deck that you can, pull pieces from or customize for different presentations, right?
Correct.
Okay. And this is your responsibility, right?
Correct.
So to me, I don't know that these rise to the level of pillars as much as, because once these are done, essentially they're done, right?
Cool. That's right.
Yeah. So to me, these are just tasks. Okay. Mm-hmm. Meaning, so for me, if you remember from the book, when I plan my week, okay, when I plan my week on that large index card, there's 3 columns. And on the right column is this ongoing to-do list, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as part of that ongoing to-do list, I have, if something has a deadline, right, I put it in yellow. So for example, you could have these 2 things on your to-do list in yellow, and you could give yourself a deadline. Like, I'd like to have these done by, March 31st. Okay. Right. Kind of thing. And so they're always kind of sitting out there as March 31st, right? These things I don't want to say there's a consequence for not getting them done, but there is a consequence for not getting them done,
sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's not that you're going to get fired or that, a customer's waiting for them. It's almost like a self-imposed deadline. So to me, these would go on that list. And then when you create your weekly list in the left column about where your priorities are, and you put down your pillars for the week, and then any other projects you want to work on, you make the decision each week based on your workload and priorities. Are these something I want to focus on this week? Right? Mm-hmm. Are these something, do I want to do 90 minutes on the master slide deck? Do I want to do, but these don't necessarily rise to the level of a pillar. Yeah. These are tasks.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, sometimes, just more of a lesson here about pillars, but sometimes these tasks that we have fit inside of a pillar, meaning that you might, you might have an ongoing pillar of always spending 1 hour a week, right, building sales tools. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, for example, if you're someone like me, I'm an entrepreneur. I don't have a company behind me necessarily. A lot of stuff I have to do on my own, right?
Yep.
And so that could be a pillar for an entrepreneur, someone like me, where it sounds to me like you have a couple of things you want to do, but I don't know that a year from now you're still building all these sales materials, right?
Yeah, I agree with you.
It's probably something that you'll build and then realize what works, what doesn't. You might refine it a little bit, kind of thing. So to me, this wouldn't rise to the level of a pillar, right? Now, if you were again an entrepreneur and you were going to hire some salespeople, you might have a pillar of, spending 1 hour a week, always modifying, reviewing, creating sales materials, right, to assist them. But I don't see that here as anything more than just a task you're working on.
Okay. Yeah, and I agree, and I think that's why although we've been working on them towards a deadline, I didn't really create them as a pillar because I knew that this is going to go away. I'm going to finish this, get it done, submit it, get it approved, and then it's in place.
Correct.
Next project.
Like right now in my current business, I have, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be doing a little bit of a road show. It just happens to be the time of year when, people are doing national sales meetings. And I have 5 national sales meetings in 5 different cities, over like a 10-day period or 12-day period or something, right? So to me, one of the things I need to get done before then is I have to have, the slide decks ready and my material, all that kind of thing. And that's just a project. It's in yellow because it has a deadline, but it's not a pillar because after that's done, there won't be one for a little bit. So again, these are just tasks that, and we tend to be good at these things, right? These urgent, significant things that either have a deadline for someone else or we know that there's a deadline because, without these things, we're kind of playing with one arm tied behind our back.
Right.
Was there anything else that you had added? I know.
The other, I don't think we touched upon the other one that I have here, which was to spend 30 minutes working on LinkedIn posts and interactions.
Yeah, I don't. That didn't make it to my final list. So tell me about that.
It didn't make it to your list. Well, I had it on here. Maybe I'm not too sure why, but I've stuck with that because again, the fact that the company hasn't released the reins on going out and doing full prospecting. So I've been mining LinkedIn, reaching out to people, leveraging some posts that the company has put out. Okay. And utilize that to create a secondary message, if you will. And have also been working with our field staff to make sure that they're essentially doing the same thing. Because again, one of my goals in this role is to create widespread visibility and awareness that we do this within this company.
Yeah.
Because that seems to be a gap out there for us. It's a hurdle for us.
So that the 30 minutes of LinkedIn could be posting, commenting on other people's posts, inviting people to become connections, whatever.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Anything else?
Nope. No, just besides the daily. Again, this is the last 2 months have been good for us business wise. Because we've been inundated with proposals and RFPs, again, right through the holidays. But it's been very good.
Yeah, and again, just so you understand where pillars fall, I mean, RFPs, proposals, those are things you're going to take care of. You're already wired for that.
Right.
Those result in business. Those have deadlines. There's other people waiting. These are the things that you do week in and week out that there's, no penalty, so to speak, for, right? And that's the problem. But the compound effect of doing them week in and week out is huge, right? If you don't knock out that RFP or whatever by Friday, you feel the pressure to do that. There's a consequence. But if you don't spend 45 minutes or 90 minutes working on direct response messaging, nothing's going to change by Friday.
Correct.
And again, that to me is like the last piece of the puzzle, right? I mean, I one of the analogies, it's like kind of baseball, right? In baseball, at the beginning of every season, you already know for a fact, we already know this for a fact, that every team's going to lose about a third of their games.
Right.
Every team's going to win about a third of their games. I don't care if you're the worst team or the best team, right? whatever that was, 162 games in a baseball season or something.
Right.
Am I doing that right? 162?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. You divide that into third. Every team's gonna win 50. Every team's gonna probably lose 50 or so, whatever it is. It's that other 50 that makes all the difference, right?
Right.
And it's and it's that sales. Same thing with salespeople. It's everyone's gonna get the request for proposals in, right? Everyone's gonna handle business when it comes in. No one has an issue with that. It's that other third that makes all the difference, right? 1 year from now, are you better? Do you have a full pipeline? Is your messaging always getting better, more effective? And so, that's why these pillars are so important. So here's what I have for you for your 5 pillars. And then I want to talk about actually hitting them.
Okay.
So schedule the one SSD each week, or it's all each week, obviously. Schedule one SSD, review your opportunity report, 45 minutes of direct response messaging, the learning part of it, 45 minutes on the output, actually crafting messages, and then 30 minutes of LinkedIn, right?
Yep.
Okay. So as far as hitting these things consistently, and I know you've changed them up a little bit, do you see these being a problem, or there are certain weeks where you had trouble hitting them and you're like, this is going to be the issue on weeks like this, or this is going to be my problem to hit them? Or
no, not at all.
Okay.
No, not these 4. These have been very consistent, and again, I do believe that hitting these has been partially a result of us being busier with our line of service.
Well, yeah, and like you said at the beginning, you can't always tell what's driving what. This is a compound effect,
right?
And here's what will start happening though. The more you hit your pillars over time, the more urgent and significant activities you're going to wind up with, right?
Yep,
pillars actually drive those.
Correct, right.
They drive the RFPs. They drive the calls you have set up, the amount of scheduled appointments, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
It's when you and I just had this talk with another guy who's been doing the pillars for a while that we recorded as part of this series. He's in sales as well. And he's been doing the pillars for longer, and they've almost caused him not too much business, but they've given him too much stuff, right? And so he got into that trap where now he's not hitting his pillars, right?
Okay.
And you have to be careful because you know how it goes in sales where all of a sudden you have a lot going on, and then all of a sudden you haven't been prospecting, you haven't been doing the other things beneath the surface because you have so much going on, and all of a sudden there's a desert a few months
That's
out, right? And then all of a sudden you're running back around going, oh, I got to do my pillars, I got to prospect, it's too late by then. And so that's a challenge, I can just tell you, that's coming up for you, right?
Okay, yeah.
And that's when you need to start looking into, those cap strategies. And it's not a bad idea to start them now, but, I would really consider, if you don't already do it, do you do anything out of the office? Or do you ever go on site? Do you travel? Do you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
We're either, and that can fall into a category of it's a finalist presentation. It's a presentation that we've been invited to go to. It could be coordinating and arranging a site visit for a prospected client.
Right.
In the 4 months that I've been here, I will honestly say I have not gone out into the field for prospecting meetings.
Right. Okay. But it's something but it's not going to be a common thing. It's going to happen, but you're not a road warrior.
In the 4 months that I've been here, not at all, which is a very big shift from where I came from previously. And it actually makes me a little nervous, to be honest. It's like, what am I doing so much? And again, some of it's been helping to build this business. Like you say, some of these projects and tasks are helping to build where we are so that we are going to be able to go out and, I'm going to make a sales run through the Northeast or the Central States or whatever it may be. I'm hoping that happens. In the 4 months I've been here, it has not.
Okay. I mean, and that's going to make hitting your pillars more difficult, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And that's why, to me, my recommendation is, if you do start turning into a little bit more of a road warrior, to make sure that you have an office day, right?
Right.
That you schedule an office day, you protect that office day, whether it's Mondays and you do your travels at other times. The other part is controlling your mornings, right? Where make sure you budget the first 90 minutes or 2 hours every morning, to hit your pillars, like I talk about in the book. But it sounds to me, from a mental standpoint, you're not having trouble with the pillars. They're actually something you want to do.
Absolutely.
So the only thing I see coming down the road would be logistical stuff when you start getting really, really busy. And that's when you're going to have to move to those cap strategies of really, scheduling time to do them and then protecting it, right?
Right.
Whether those are office days, whether those are mornings. My sales guys who are road warriors, we tend to focus on office days, right? Like Mondays are their sacred office days to, get 80 to 90% of their pillars done. Then they can travel. Other people I work with that aren't on the road so much, it's usually better to take the first couple of hours each morning to do this kind of stuff. Or you start hopping on the phones and really, really protect your time, right? Any other questions or concerns? And again, you're going to be adding the prospecting one down the road. So when you add that, that's going to, because right now you don't have a lot of time to hit the good news is your pillars don't take a lot of time.
Correct.
Which is good. When we get into the prospecting portion, that could change, right?
Correct. Because that'll just generate more activity.
It'll generate more activity, and it's, more time to prospect. Any questions you have for me, or any concerns you see coming, or any specific pillar questions? I mean, I feel like you have the right pillars right now. Minus the prospecting one that's on ice for a while, right?
Right. Right now, I believe I do. I'm anticipating, though, what's going to be next. What additional pillar or two or three, or obviously within some sort of control here, and not go crazy on the number of pillars, but what's going to be next, and the idea that really you gave me when we spoke the first time was control your mornings.
Yeah,
that's been critical, and I have, and there's days where I've gone into my Outlook calendar and I've blocked out the first 2 hours of that day. Now that may be from 7 to 9, or maybe from 8 to 10.
That's fine.
But it's been critical.
I mean, mine's blocked out for the entire year. I mean, it's not even. It by default it's blocked out. If there's ever an exception to the rule, I move it. But if it's not a travel day, 7 to 10 is mine.
Right.
Now that I operate this way, I cannot imagine how I used to do things. It boggles my mind. It boggles my mind that I ever got anything done, honestly.
Yeah, well, it's too haphazard. It's too chaotic.
Yeah.
And I know when I get into that frazzled state, it's because I haven't followed this. I haven't followed the format of that.
You haven't planned your day and all that kind of stuff.
Correct.
All right. Well, I think we're good. If anything happens, reach out to me. Any updates or anything you want, good or bad. I want updates on all different things, right?
Yeah, good. And I've actually been trying to influence others within my division that, hey, you guys got to try this. And I've shared these. I've shared these with my boss. And it's interesting because I've said to her, listen, this is something that I'm trying here. I've not done this before. I'd like to be organized. I'd like to be methodical. I'd like to have that plan to follow. And this I found to be very helpful in getting done and getting us moving in the right direction. And so I've been sharing these with her, and I'll keep her updated, because I've said if this is working, then we should all be looking at something like this.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. If the company's remember you said they have so much business coming in, they're not even prospecting.
Yeah.
That's usually not the time when they're thinking about systems and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And again,
they tend to wait till everything dries up.
Right. And then it's almost too late. But
yeah, I know.
It
But
just, I've never been with an organization where this has been the case. And truly, with each one of these individuals that I talk to, who are in a similar position to me on a different line of service, I'm blown away by that.
well,
But
it's not your line of service that this is happening for. It's the other lines of service, right?
correct,
Yeah.
correct. And
Well,
I'm hoping
listen,
it
for the
happens
company's
for
sake,
us.
hopefully it stays that way, but
That's
that's
right.
rarely the case.
That's right. That's
And,
true.
and if that much business comes in, then eventually they move away from commission salespeople anyway. And they're like, "Wait, what do we need you guys for?
That's right.
We just need account managers, people to service it, right?"
That's right.
So, all right. Well, listen, have a great year.
Well, thank you.
And if anything, like I said, if anything pops up, please feel free to reach out to me. Any updates, I want to hear them. All right.
Good. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Have a great one. Have a happy New Year.
You too.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Simplify Your Strategy, Magnify Your Results. If you know someone you think could benefit from this episode, be their hero and share it with them. If you'd like a free copy of my book or you want to be considered as a guest on a future episode, head on over to productivitygiant.com. Have a great day, and thanks again.